It's pretty fun to play. It has a fretless fingerboard. It wasn't originally fretless. We kind of tore them out and painted it. But it's a very quirky instrument. It's not similar to any other instrument I've played. There's, for example, sometimes when you're playing the highest string, it can come off of the fingerboard because of the way it's our first attempt and we didn't construct it very well. I played the bass guitar and the double bass. So Zach and I were having a bass sectional at the time, which is where every member of the bass section gets together and we do activities together, whether it's practicing, watching movies, that kind of thing. And we decided to make this bass. We did it all together. We learned about the instrument, that kind of thing, and we brought it into Packard Hall, which is the instrument building of our school, and we named it the Packard Hall Community Bass. And anybody that walks into Packard can play the bass, they can ask about the bass, learn what we did, and hopefully do something similar.
So, what kind of what's a piano technician? So I think the common parlance and the common understanding about, especially in the U.S., is when people say I'm a piano technician, they immediately think of a piano tuner. And a piano tuner, and they are piano tuner, but they are literally, they can tune a piano and maybe they can do some regulation of the action, and if they are really lucky, they can also do some voicing. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of like when kind of like more piano tuner. The technical term and within the guild is really used as a piano technician, and a piano technician, in the way how I studied it, has really gone through the entire process of building pianos.
The technical term is luthier.
Luthier.
Luthier. And there's multiple pronunciations, but we'll stick with luthier because it's more the American version. French is luthier, but and if you're from the South, Luther.
Okay.
I started off literally in the basement cleaning rental violins that had been returned, and they're all covered in goop and tape.
People who don't wash their fingers before they play, and then over time the keys get really nicely dirty.
Yeah, this instrument, it's not the most playable instrument, but I really love it because I get to test out my new ideas on it. I get to test out any new electronics. I get to test out a new bridge or something on this instrument before it goes into something I'm actually trying to make look good, you know?
So my music history, so to speak, or my kind of like relationship to music started relatively early on because my dad was a piano technician himself.
Before I started working at the violin shop that I apprenticed at in San Jose, I was working for my dad at his music store.
I started playing the flute, I believe, when I was 5, and then I started playing the piano when I was 7.
I've taken lessons for violin and for cello, and mostly it's to help make the repairs and the adjustments in the shop better. I have no illusions of being a violin player or a cellist.
Alright, so I'm making an electric guitar and I'm making an electric bass. So far I've made the bodies for each and I've sanded the bodies. I cut them out and then I sanded them. The electric guitar is pretty unique because I made a cutout on the top where I have room for the control plate on the top of the pickups rather than the bottom, which is something you really don't find in most mainstream instruments and something I really couldn't have gotten without doing it myself, and I really take pride in that kind of thing.
I rebuilt a 1928 Steinway, and that was an interesting experience. So I rebuilt this piano, not completely from scratch, but I replaced the keys, I replaced the action, I replaced the damper. So it's from a engine perspective, it's a completely new piano. Mm-hmm. And I replaced all of that, and it was in my living room for a few months, and it is true. You really get some almost like a relationship with the piano. You really come like you start discovering much more of the true soul or true color of the piano by working with it. And so it was interesting to me when I sold the piano. It actually, in some sense, I was happy it was gone because I got too close to the piano. But on the other hand, it was like, oh, this is a bummer that I had now invested so much, not just work and labor, but kind of like, emotion is probably too strong of a word, but connectivity, and that's gone, and that's kind of like sad. So to answer your question, is there a different relationship between having rebuilt the piano than having just kind of like seen a new piano and tuned it once? Absolutely, it's fundamentally different. I always say whenever I replace or rebuild a piano, something of me is left behind with the piano.
What does fascinate me is the improvements that have been made in the traditional violin area, which you'd think something that's 300 years old that really hasn't changed in those 300 years, with the exception, the strings have changed dramatically from pure gut to a synthetic gut core that's wound. Boy, there are so many, things that have improved recently, that help the 300-year-old instruments, or even if it's just merely 100 years old, help them to have a more powerful sound, to affect the tone. So there's a lot of innovations that have come along recently that make an old product or an old thing that they make it better, and so that's exciting.
We used a Berlitz Basic French record. So the reason why we used a Berlitz Basic French record for the pickguard is we couldn't find another pickguard that would match our body shape or the cutout of the neck. So we found a record to use. I mean, it works really well. It fits the shape of the body, and it just gives the instrument more character than it had before. Just making the instrument you play or creating something that you use to work with, like building your own computer, making your own instrument, you learn a lot about the application of the object, and it's something I think everybody should do.